At CBF, we know that for you to change your body, you need to change your mind. Exercise and eating healthy is only part of the plan. We care about our members as we care about our family because our members become our family. It is not about competition, but support. It is not about being the strongest or the fastest, but about you defeating your negative self. It is about working together and making the task challenging and have fun. By the end, what matters is not how hard the session was, but that you take control of your mind so you can take control of your body. My name is Sandro Torres, and I'm happy you are part of our family. Welcome to Custom Body Fitness. Okay, everybody, welcome to another interview here in Body and Mind Transformation by Custom Body Fitness. This is your health coach, Sandro Torres. And today we're going to be talking about from 70 pounds overweight, financially, emotionally, spiritual broke, to a very successful woman. She is a plant-based nutritionist certified, holistic nutritionist certified. She's also a yoga instructor certified. It holds a Master of Science degree in adult learning. I'm very excited to introduce my friend Veronica Clark. Welcome, Veronica.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Thank you.
I want to know more about you. I want our audience to know more about you. Tell me how everything started. When did you decide that you needed to lose that weight? What happened in your life? When was the turnaround?
It's very interesting, this question, because I didn't realize that I needed to lose weight until I was basically having a nervous breakdown. And so all of this happened in, I'd say right around 2008, where, up until 2008, I was moving along in my life, doing very well for myself. I have 5 children. I was, overseeing 10 banking centers for Chase Bank. I was doing well. I was busy. I was active. I thought at one point that I would be the mayor of Avondale. It really did. It was, I had a lot of great things going. And then, just like many things, I hadn't been paying attention to the stress in my life and how I was actually feeling on the deep inside. I was so focused on holding up this idea that I'd started to create for myself that was where I was invested. That's what my focus was. At that time, I also had a group home. So I had a state licensed group home in Phoenix where I provided a home for young girls from the reservation, who were pregnant or parenting, who'd been abused, had come from, really violent homes. So I have my business, I have my children, I have, I'm also working for me. So that is where all my attention was. And I wasn't focusing or thinking about me. So, I didn't realize how overweight I was, to be quite frank. And I want to tell you something. When it comes to being overweight, what I came to realize after breaking down was all of the weight that I was carrying was literally all of the weight of the pressure and all of the traumas and everything else that I was carrying. And I was physically carrying it, but it was a physical representation of all of the emotional and spiritual baggage that was weighing me down.
Do you think that you were busy working, helping people, running your family because you were running for your traumas?
100%. But I did not know that. Most people don't know that.
I went through something similar.
Mm-hmm.
Continue.
Yeah, well, I really believe that people are inherently good. We're good people, and so a lot of times when we have traumas, and we know how many horrible things that we've gone through. We know how bad it hurt to not have the love or the affection or sometimes the food or the whatever it was that we needed. We know. And so as soon as we get to a point, and this is true for me, as soon as I got to a point where I could help other people, that's what I wanted to do. I mean, I had a nonprofit organization. I ran this on my own while I eventually brought other people on. But I had the nonprofit, I had my business, I was raising money for children, I was doing so much. This is why I was like, I'm going to be the mayor. Like, I felt so good about myself. I had so much, like, I was like, this is where my worth is. I had the capacity to give to all these people, but I was not giving to myself. And I wanted to give to them. But what I didn't realize is that all of those children were a representation of the little girl in me that was neglected and that was abused and didn't have enough food and didn't have school clothes and didn't have supplies. And I wanted to give to me, but I didn't know that. And that's the thing about it, is that trauma, until we start to become aware of the trauma, we continue to neglect parts of ourselves.
Let me ask you a question about that. How many people do you think they are who are overweight is because they have traumas? And how many people of that people do you think they don't know they overweight because of those traumas?
I think that there's different reasons why people may be overweight. Some of those reasons may be due to, some disease, which again, we can dive down that hole because a lot of disease is created first from the traumas. And it's like, so yeah, I think most of the time we are being energetically affected by our unhealed traumas, and it is represented in our weight, and most people are not aware of that. Now, the other part I just want to add is that traumas also lead to a lack of discipline, right? Self-discipline. And also lead to really poor coping strategies and different habits, which are again represented in as a form of neglect. We're neglecting ourselves by not disciplining ourselves, by not knowing where our boundaries are. So we may overeat or overconsume.
Self-destruction?
Exactly. It's very unconscious though. Because again, I want to say that most people are good people, and most people don't realize that that's what they're doing.
So for people to actually lose weight permanently, the best thing they can do, based on what you're telling me, is maybe the first thing they need to start with is their traumas, to make sure that that's something that is not causing the overweight and is not causing other problems such as not being disciplined. Once that is clear, it seems like the rest is going to be easier.
Yeah, well, and starting with their traumas might be difficult initially. So it could be to start also looking at some of their habits. So let me explain what I mean by that. When I started to have this nervous breakdown, then I wasn't feeling good, right? I had been ignoring so many things for so long. And while I do believe that the underlying issues behind me being overweight and the choices that I was making was definitely because of my upbringing and all of the things that happened. So yes, my unresolved traumas were at the foundation of the choices that I was making. But to start looking right away at the traumas, that can be really difficult for people, and they don't always have the tools to do that. And so if you try to go right from, well, I want to lose weight, so now I'm going to go look directly at my traumas, you know what? That's probably going to put you back in another cycle, and you might just keep, doing all the things, and you're going to stay overweight, and might even get more overweight because looking at that stuff is just too hard. Okay? We need support for that. So I think that when you you start to even have some understanding that I have some unresolved things. I have trauma. I have things that I haven't ever told anybody, that I've never talked about, that I just swallowed, that I just put away. We need to start looking at some of the habits. Well, what do I do to make myself feel better so that I don't feel those things? Or so that I can try to keep those things buried when they start to come up. So, looking at our habits, how do you overeat? Do you oversleep? Or you feel lonely, so you may just sit there and just consume
Are
a
you
lot of
dependent?
television.
Are you dependent on other person? Are you doing drugs? Are you drinking? Are you compulsive shopping?
Yeah,
Any of those behaviors, right?
exactly. Look at those behaviors and be honest with yourself. Most people know and don't feel good about being overweight. When I started to really slow down and look, because I had to slow down because all of a sudden this breakdown was like, you have to look at everything. I was like, I don't feel good. Like, I feel sluggish. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel good. If you don't feel good walking up the stairs, then you're lying to yourself. You don't feel good, or you don't feel attractive when you're having sex or you're making love, or you don't want your partner to see you naked. If you don't feel like you can celebrate your body honestly without pretending like, I'm okay with being overweight. Like, when I was really honest with myself, I was like, I don't want that. But I've been trying to overcompensate and ignore that part because, for me, I had a lot of sexual trauma. So sexual trauma and body image, I was like, great. I don't want anybody to look at me. I don't want to be touched. Right? I don't want to be sexually attractive to anybody.
I hear that. I think I don't remember. I think I read a lot, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I hear that very often. The women, when they're sexually abused, what they do is, and thank you for disclosing a lot of things. I really appreciate it, you honesty. I really appreciate it. It's not easy to just get out there and talk about everything, but that's very powerful. You're a very strong woman. I can tell. They say the way to protect themselves for other women, for other men not looking at them, is by them being overweight.
And again, this is unconscious. Most of the time, you don't think like I'm good. I didn't say that to myself. I didn't realize that until I had to start looking at it because I was breaking down. So the breakdown for me, even though it was very hard and it was painful and I did not know how to navigate it initially, it was the best thing that could have happened to me because I don't know where I would have been if I would have kept on holding all of that energetic weight. You see people all the time, they become alcoholics, they might even resort to suicide. There's so many things, or hurting other people, exploding. So I'm so grateful that I felt like instead of imploding and something else happening, like I had a breakdown and I got to look. So before people start to, if you're even at that point, if you're even close to that point, just stop right now. And it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to not have it all figured out or to be perfect.
You reminded me of a couple of things. I also was in a bad path, and we're not. I'm not gonna tell you my story because we're talking about you, but I'm gonna give you a couple summary about. I had a breakdown. I went into big depression. In that moment, I was broken, and I took the pain completely. I embraced the pain and decided to give my life to God and do the right thing. That's when I embraced the pain. That's when I started noticing all my traumas. And I started discovering a lot of things, the way they behave, and why I hurt other people, and why I used to be in the bad path. And the other thing that you reminded me is actually a lady helped me with this. I was talking to her. I had after I decided to change and do the right thing. Before that, I didn't care about relationship. I could date, and I didn't care if I hurt the woman or whatever. But after I decided to do the right thing. All I wanted to do is find a good relationship. And every single one of my relationship after that also failed. It was like four of them, and honestly, I didn't want to have sex until I got married. I relapsed. Anyway, I was talking to the lady, and she was asking me questions, and finally she told me, "This is your mistake, Sandro," and that's completely true. She said, "You trying to rescue your mom. When you looking for other women, you're looking for women who have a lot of trouble. You're attracted to that woman because you see your mom there." And when she say that, it's just like click right on it. I look all the women I dated, and I say, that's right. I feel attracted for those women who are trouble. And when she said that, it's like I became aware of that.
Yes.
And 3 years ago, I started. 4 years ago, I started dating this wonderful lady, and now we've been married for 4 years, and we have a child. But I think she needed to point it out. If she didn't point it out, I probably will continue try to rescue my mom. And
Yes.
so you remind me of those things. Continue with your story.
I'm touched by you saying that, and I'm so grateful that you were able to see the truth in that reflection, and then that turned the light bulb in you, and then you were able to make different choices, and that changed the trajectory of your life. Otherwise, you would have kept on doing that same thing until you finally realized it on your own. So that's a gift. This is the thing that I believe is everything can be used for our greater good. Every single thing, all the painful things, everything, nothing is excluded. All of it can and is included in us helping to really discover ourselves and understand ourselves. So we don't have to get mad about the way that we had been before. Don't do it again. If it was hurting other people, if it was hurting yourself, stop doing it. But you have to learn from it. We can't cut that part off. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of our history. And you learn from it and you grow from it. And for myself, I share something very similar. It's like, enjoy the pain. As crazy as that sounds, is that, I remember when I was 17 years old, that was a point where, again, my traumas had come to a head in my life because I had experienced a lot of childhood and adolescent trauma. And there was a point, I I was smoking weed one day. I smoked weed when I was, like a teenager, smoking weed. And I had so much clarity in that moment of enjoy the pain. And I didn't understand what that meant. At that time, I didn't have enough awareness. But that when I look back on that, I was like, that 17-year-old girl who had been going through so much stuff had so much wisdom. And so later, I was like, you know what? The pain is there to teach me something also. So don't try to numb it or avoid it. I got to turn around and look at the pain. So by the time I had that breakdown in 2008, I had that wisdom from my 17-year-old self that came back up and said, like, enjoy the pain. Enjoy. That doesn't mean to be, a narcissist or to like hurt or anybody else or to myself, but to like turn to it as a friend. And what do you have to teach me? What are you trying to tell me? And there's a lot of wisdom that can come from our pain because it can teach us what our boundaries are and what not to do and how we really want to live going forward. And
To not experience that pain again.
To not experience that pain again, to not keep repeating the same patterns, to interrupt those behaviors. And you have to be strong enough and be willing enough to interrupt those patterns. But a lot of times people are not, which comes from the lack of discipline. So just to synthesize what I'm saying a little bit more, if you want to lose weight and you know you want to, turn to that weight and ask it, why are you here? Why have I chose this path? What am I protecting myself from? What am I wrapping myself? What's the burdens that I'm carrying that I think I have to keep carrying? Sometimes we're carrying family burdens, and we think we have to rescue our family. We're the ones that shouldering the burden, so to speak, but it's costing us something. So turn and turn to that. Why am I making these choices? Tell me, ask your body, talk to yourself. And then you got to start looking at your habits. What are the habits that you're going to change? So for me, I was like, okay, honestly, I don't feel good in my body. I don't like the way that I look. I can pretend that I like, but I don't. So what am I going to do? So that's when I started juicing and blending. I started changing my diet. And what was awesome is that it wasn't that hard to do it when I started to be honest about with myself. Like, I don't even like eating all of this other stuff. Like, I feel like crap.
It's like you're not fighting against something anymore.
Exactly.
Tell me a little bit more about the things, how you used to eat. Give me a quick summary of how you used to eat and how did you change it. How do you eat now?
So how I used to eat was I would overconsume, but I wouldn't really pay attention to what I was eating, or I would just like eat in, I'd eat in the morning, or let me think about that for a minute. But it wasn't really planned. It was just like I'd eat a bunch in one setting, and then maybe not eat for a while, and then eat a bunch in another setting. Like eat. And there was a point where I had to say, like, I tried bulimia, but like I was like, I'm gonna keep eating because I didn't want to stop eating, and I felt so compulsive. But then I was like, I'm gonna try this. Like I didn't. I'm trying to find the words to be able to say this. I've never said this out loud. It's very interesting. But I was like, I'm going to try throwing this up. So then I was bulimic for about 3 months. And it wasn't something that really caught on. It wasn't something I didn't, have a compulsion in that. But I would realize my compulsion was in the overeating, and I wanted to keep overeating. And I was trying to find and make space for myself to keep overeating. And so I figured if I did that, then I could keep overeating. It was a really interesting kind of a reverse thing, but I didn't realize that the overeating was bringing me some comfort, because I didn't have comfort in my other areas of my life if I wasn't the winner, so to speak, if I wasn't being the hero to everyone else. When I got home in my marriage, I wasn't the hero. I wasn't winning. The marriage was falling apart, had been falling apart. So I dealt with that by just overeating.
Try to cover the stress with that overeating.
Exactly.
Right?
On those in between, because when I was showing up at my business and when I was going to the banking centers, I had this kind of this facade, right? Like
everything is perfect.
I'm perfect. Life is perfect, when it wasn't perfect. But I just had that. So then when I'm in my car, then, and when I'm at home, I was doing other things. And it wasn't even so much that, like, here's the thing. Even though I was overeating in those moments, I wasn't overeating like a bunch of donuts and a bunch of like crazy things like that. It was just that there was so much of the stress and the hormones and all the cortisol that was also keeping that extra body weight. And it was me not really exercising and moving my body. So it wasn't just exactly what I was eating, because I've always ate pretty well overall.
But it was the amount.
The amount.
Yeah, it was.
It was the amount of that I was eating and not moving, not exercising.
So now you can say that you still eat healthy, you still eat the same way, but less amount. Now you conscious about it, and now, like you said, now you plan it.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's a much more natural way of eating. I'm not going to eat if I'm not hungry. And when I'm full, I just stop eating. So, a nice rule, a nice practice to have for somebody is like leave some food on your plate, which goes against the training that many of us have been conditioned by, which is eat everything off of
Finish
your
your
plate.
plate.
There's starving kids in Africa, so you have to eat all your food.
Yeah, I still have that. I still have that chip ingrained, and I noticed because I finish everything on my plate, and I want everybody to finish everything in their plate. I'm crazy about that, but I still have that chip in there. I have to remove that. But I understand where you're coming from. Okay, so then you start exercising. Tell me about that.
Oh my gosh, when I started exercising, it was incredible. Just doing the treadmill and running. First of all, I started having so much more fun. I felt so free. I felt better and that's because I didn't really understand the science behind it, but because I was starting to produce more endorphins and I had more of the serotonin, right? I felt better. I felt more free. And that was such an incredible experience because I felt like my heart just started to open, which was almost a new feeling. I've always been a loving and kind person, but this feeling was very different because it didn't feel like I had to do something in order to feel loving. It was just
For you.
a feeling that arose inside simply by running and getting on the treadmill and sweating. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? It was incredible. And so when you're exercising, when I started exercising, I wanted to, of course, eat even better. So the juicing, the blending, I loved it. I was like, I had no idea I needed a Vitamix at first, so I would get like the magic bullet, and I was like trying to blend up wheatgrass, which burned out the motor, right? But it was like, I was so excited because I was onto something. And I'll tell you, in that first month, I lost and I'd say really, I released about 12, 13 pounds, which was really noticeable. We were like, wow, what happened? How'd you do that? And really, it was because of a combination of those things. A, feeling better, feeling more joy, feeling happier, being able to exercise and just get out. And I wasn't in the gym just like doing a bunch of weights. It was just finding something that I enjoyed doing and realizing that something was happening, and I could feel it from the inside, like something's happening. After that, that's why I also started to go to yoga. I started practicing hot yoga, and that became my religion. Something happened in that yoga studio. I practiced Bikram yoga, and I would go like 7 days a week. And I was going, first of all, because I just felt better. I felt better. It was hard, but I felt better. And then I started seeing the changes in my body even more drastically. And I was like, wow. So
it's like a new drug.
It was like a new drug. It was healthy. It was so incredible. I felt like a new person. The woman looking back at me in the mirror was a woman that I had never recognized. I'd never seen her. I had no idea. So it was like me getting to know myself all over again. I had no idea. I'm going to tell you something. I didn't even understand what that meant to get to know myself. I didn't have language for that because for me, I wasn't I didn't have the language that I have now. I was very pragmatic, very practical, because I didn't want to be too emotional. That was too much. But as soon as I started to see myself in the mirror and I was starting to see the changes, it was like the woman looking back at me was telling me, you have an opportunity. You can be anyone you want. You can change your life, your whole life. Like, what do you want now? And that was the first time that I really started to ask myself different kinds of questions. What do you want now? Ultimately, it did lead me to a divorce, which I'm grateful for also, because the marriage wasn't working out, and we weren't to be together. So it was perfect. We served our purpose. We have children, and the marriage ended. And that felt like a relief. And I was like, wow, more weight gone. Who am I now? Who am I becoming? And so then I started to study more. I decided to become a yoga teacher trainer, or a yoga teacher. So I went to training. I wanted to teach other people the things that were making such a big impact in my life. So I became a health coach. I started to study plant-based nutrition.
Like a ripple effect.
Totally. And it was like, if this was changing my life so much, I felt like I have to share this with other people. Other people have to know that there's a solution. So after I got out of banking, because that was part of this whole thing also of having to transition, and I went into higher education. And once I became a health coach, it was so funny. I worked in a big office. There's lots of cubicles and all kinds of things, but almost everybody in there, I knew how often they were pooping and what their poop looked like and what they were eating. It was incredible. I would take like my green drinks, and I started to sell green drinks to people. I brought them in mason jars, and people were drinking apple cider vinegar and getting on bouncy chairs. Like, it was incredible.
You tried to change the whole team of the bank.
The whole team. It was amazing. And a lot of people caught on, and I was coaching them, and it was really incredible to feel truly like I was making a difference. But it felt so alive in me. Like I said, I've always been somebody who wants to give back, but this had made such a big difference in my life that I was talking about it and teaching people from personal experience.
Yeah, exactly. More than anything, you doing it yourself.
Exactly.
Not just helping somebody because you want to rescue yourself. When we talk about that, it reminds me of that movie, Constantine. Have you watched the movie?
I haven't watched it. No.
I don't remember the name of the actor.
Who's in it. It's Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. What he's doing, he's sending demons to hell. And the reason why he's sending demons to hell, because he's condemned to hell because he's destroying himself by smoking. So he's gonna die, he's gonna go to hell. There is no other way. So he's not helping himself, he's just helping the world, but sending all those demons to hell.
Wow.
And the devil confront him. You have to watch the movie. The devil confront him and say, no matter what you do, you're gonna go to hell. I mean, you have no forgiveness, and you have to watch the movie. I'm not gonna tell you the whole thing, but by the end, he made the act of sacrifice. He sacrificed himself for save somebody else. When he did that, that's when God rescued him. That's when he became an angel. But that movie reminded me of me and probably you, that we try to rescue people and we try to help them, but we don't notice that we need to help ourselves first.
Yeah.
And then when you help yourself, and when you out there, now you feel great helping other people because you know you lead in the way.
From an honest place.
Yeah, yes. From an honest place. Yeah. I know what you mean. So I think people, to understand this, need to experience the difference between it's not being selfish, taking care of yourself. It's taking care of yourself so you can take care of others.
Yes.
And once you take care of others, that's very selfish because it makes you feel amazing. It makes you feel it's the most selfish thing you can do because it's just something inexplicable. There is no car, there is no sex, there is no drug, there is no party, there is absolutely nothing. It's compared when you're really helping somebody else. Okay, let's talk about.
I just want to say I really love that. I'm inspired by that because the difference between what I was doing, for instance, like sharing the health and sharing these insights. By the way, that ultimately led me to becoming a life coach and then to become a sex and intimacy coach, because I found it, very interesting. I can't talk about someone's nutrition without talking about their other habits and their sleep and the way that so going through that initial door as a health coach actually led me to where I am today. And it also helped me to confront my sexual trauma, because although I had established a group home and although I'd been doing a lot of work advocating, I still had not truly confronted my own sexual trauma, nor had I confronted my perpetrators and any of those things. And so this doorway of being able to serve, not to save people, but to really say, look, this is how I'm changing my life. It actually helped me to become even more accountable, learn how to love myself even more, and ultimately start to heal my own sexual traumas and to confront my perpetrators, which I hadn't been able to do for 30 years. So it really changed my life. And
you set yourself free.
I did set myself free. I love that you can pull that out.
I've been in the same shoes than you. I haven't been in I'm not ashamed of it. But I haven't been sexual abused, but I have seen things like my mom used to sleep with guys in front of me and things like that. That's where all my traumas came. And that's where I found a lot of things. And like you probably already know, right? That's the reason why we communicated pretty good. Um, it's not to blame. My mom, those guys. My dad left my mom when she was pregnant, and and I think I miss a male role model as well. But like I said, it's not. We're not blaming them. It's just what happened. But when you go back and notice that, and there is no feelings, it's like no remorse, no anger, no um, feelings of revenge or anything like that. It's like I understand. I understand why you did it, and probably the person who hurt you. You understand all the traumas that he is carrying from the past, and that's the way it is. And when you understand that, it's like you set yourself free. It's like I'm allowed to live. It's not the world is not against me. It's just it is.
I can give you a big hug right now, because that is it's so beautiful to hear you say that, because it's true, and it's hard for some people to acknowledge that, because they may still be in that victim mindset, and certainly you and I will say, I've been victimized and I am no longer a victim, and that is me setting myself free. And it's hard sometimes to be able to come to that point, but I think that's ultimately that is the greatest sense of freedom, is that we don't have to be attached to the past anymore, and we do have an understanding, and that understanding leads to great compassion. It doesn't mean that it's okay. The things that happened don't mean it wasn't okay. I don't condone it, but to be able to say I understand, and you're released and I'm released, and I have boundaries, and I know how to use my voice and protect myself moving forward, that's liberating.
Yes,
that's freedom.
The rest is to God. That doesn't belong to us. Let's talk about your book. You have two books. One is called To Be Aligned, and the other one is Getting Clear on Your Highest Purpose. Why should we read those books, and what are the messages?
Okay, little correction. So the first book is called To Be Aligned, Getting Clear on Your Highest Purpose. The other book I want to tell you is called Sex Boss. And that is about being able to empower yourself. So let me talk to you about To Be Aligned first. So to be aligned is a framework that people can follow to start to reinvent themselves. Because what I do is I begin with the end in mind. We're all going to pass away from this earth one day. We're all going to die. It's inevitable. And we need to be able to look at that and to be able to confront that and say, while I still have time, how do I want to live? How do I want to feel? How do I want to love? How am I going to show up in my life? And so I take people through that process of really being able to look at it. And then from there, I show you how to create new values for yourself and to look at your habits and to look at some of the most critical areas of your life, what I call the 8 desires, these 8 domains of your life. And so, being able to look at your sexuality, your health, your physical health, your relationship to spirituality and personal health, personal growth, your career, family, friends. So I look at all of these different areas and really help you to map out, okay, what do I want in each of these domains? I take you through affirmations, I take you through all of these things so that you can truly recreate yourself and envision yourself as a whole new being. So it's the framework. I feel like that's what I went through. It was this book, To Be Aligned, was a gift to myself, and it was the framework that I used to help me as I was going through my healing process. So that's the first book. It's accessible. It's an easy book to read. It's also not a book that you rush through because there's guided practices in there. So my other book is really about healing from sexual trauma and really being able to be the boss of your life. Sex, I use that as an acronym for Sacred Energy Exchange. It was very important for me during my healing to be able to reclaim sexuality as sacred and holy and divine. And that's important for me. I wanted to learn a new language of sexuality so that I could come home to myself, so that I could feel really good and beautiful in my body, and also when I want to, be able to share my sexuality. And so this book is a beautiful exploration of your views about sex, the experiences, the messages that you've received about sex, how you want to see sex. I talk about energy and the power of being able to use our sexual energy, which is our life force. People sometimes don't realize that we want to cut our sexuality off and leave that off the table. We don't want to think about our genitals or our sex unless we're actually in the act of sex or we're like bathing or using the bathroom. But it's like, no, this is a part of our body. This is a part of our experience as a human. So I teach people about that and how to better understand that through the lens of Tantra. And I explain a little bit more about what that is in there. So it's another really beautiful book. More questions, things to think about. Talk about masculine and feminine energy in there. And I also have some practices in there for couples to be able to use together so that they can increase and enhance more intimacy and more connection, especially if there is any kind of sexual trauma. And I wanted to say, sexual trauma can come in many forms, including religious indoctrination or shaming. I work with a lot of male clients who have been shamed by their mother for masturbating and different things like that. And so sexual trauma can come in a lot of different ways.
Pornography.
What'd you say?
Pornography,
exactly. So this is really about coming home to your body, seeing your sexual energy as your vital life force, and being able to really honor it and cherish it and share it in more elevating ways. So
it seems like 2 interesting books.
Yeah.
The first one, it seems like it will help somebody to lose weight because you have
absolutely
you have those steps to follow in those domains. So I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna read it myself.
Thank you.
Where can we find you? People want to follow you. Where can they go?
So the first place to go to would be my website because that has all of my information. VeronicaLynnClark.com. I'm sure you'll include that in the bio link.
Yeah.
And then also follow me on Instagram at Veronica L. Clark. I'm the love coach.
Interesting. Instagram, that's where they can follow you the most.
That's where they can follow me the most, Instagram. So I would love your follow, absolutely. And I oftentimes share just different things. They can get ebooks, also free ebooks to be able to learn more from me. You can set up discovery calls with me. But yeah, so Instagram and my website are going to be the best place.
Perfect. I'm gonna link those, and also I'm gonna link the link to the books. And the last question I have for you: what's your best weight loss tip for our public?
Push yourself away from the table. Really, it's very simple. But pay attention. Just push yourself away from the table for a moment to give yourself enough space to see, am I making this decision from my pain or from my power? Am I choosing from my pain or from my power? And if you can do that, you're going to be able to make a decision to say, do I really need this food right now? Or can I go make a different choice?
That's a unique tip. This is the first time I hear that tip. It's perfect. Hopefully people put that into practice. I am gonna put it into practice. I managed to stay in shape. I eat the healthiest food. It's very weird that I eat something out, things like that. I eat a lot of organics, veggies, so on. But sometimes I find myself overeating when the food tastes so good. And my wife has such a hand and taste to cook that everything she makes, it just tastes amazing.
That's great. Yeah, that's where you get to challenge and discipline yourself to not overeat.
Yeah.
Just what you need.
That's exactly. I'm gonna use that. Push myself from the table. If my wife says something, I'm gonna just point it out to you. Like she told me to push it away from the table. Anything else you wanna add?
You know what? I would like to say to people, believe in yourself. Believe in what's possible for your life. Doesn't matter what has happened in the past, it doesn't mean that it has to continue that way. So believe in yourself and choose yourself, because when you choose yourself, you're going to show up in your best light. And that is how you're actually going to be able to bring more love and more beauty to everybody else in your life. And you'll be blessed. So.
Perfect, Veronica. Thank you so much. So you hear this great conversation. I'll summarize it for you, but I really encourage you to listen to the whole thing. This is an amazing talk. I learned a lot from Veronica. And get those books, follow her, and continue losing weight, continue improving yourself, continue getting free, and be the best you can be. Thank you so much, Veronica, for being with us. And for now, bye.
Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoyed the content offered here, then I know you will enjoy these books. These are great tools to lead you to successful weight loss, better health, and greater happiness.